Hello, YouTube. We are back with another class guide, and today we're going to be looking at Captain for the legendary servers of Angmar and Mordor at the level 65 cap. We'll go over virtues and trait point setups, and then some what to aim for gear wise before you get to raid. So what you can try to work towards in your small dungeon groups and stuff. I know they've changed the dungeons a little bit, but some of them are still a little bit tricky. So some of this gear might still feel quite impossible to obtain, but I'll share it nonetheless. Alrighty, starting with virtues here. As always, generally what you're going to want to do is fidelity, loyalty, justice, honor, and fortitude. And this is for both or all specs. Morale is just super important. If you need the tactical mitigation, you can do tolerance. But you won't need tolerance in the long run. It's more of a short-term thing to make sure you get that tactical mitigation. But through gear, like crafted stuff, and these other virtues, for the most part, you should be able to hit the tactical mitigation cap, which is about, I think it's like 2.2. I don't think I'm quite there yet. Yeah, not quite, but it's about 2.2, 2.3. I'll put, as always, I'll put like a stat cap in the description so you can look at the exact numbers. But yeah, these are the traits that I would use for all three specs. In yellow line, there is an argument to be made for idealism, as it still gives you a little bit of morale, but it also helps your incoming healing, which is super important as a tank. So you would take loyalty, idealism, honor, fortitude, and then I would probably take fidelity over justice, unless your tactical mitigation is capped and you're not too worried about your morale. Justice helps with your morale regeneration, and it has but it's technically less mitigation and less morale overall. Where fidelity gives you tactical mitigation and vitality, and the vitality actually gives you more morale than justice does. So if you were tanking, you could replace justice with idealism if you were a little bit worried about the incoming healing stuff. But it's not necessary. Red line, if you wanted crit, or blue can use some crit to confidence or determination, helps with your crit. Tanks, if you're finding that your force taunts are being resisted a lot, wit is also useful. I would personally take wit over idealism, and then you're just running fidelity, fidelity, loyalty, honor, fortitude, and wit. But that's purely if you just find that your finesse rating is too low, which helps with the resistance of your. It prevents your force taunts from being resisted as much. So that's also something to consider. But generally speaking, the 5 defensive virtues, just to help with your morale and tactical mitigations as much as possible, is the safest way to go across the board, raiding or dungeons, or just even if it's just solo. Alrighty, starting with red line. So I've left 9 points available here to spend, just to do a little bit of a discussion. But this is what your trait setup should look like, and then we have these 9 points left. Because we're gonna start branching out to other trees, I'm just gonna put 1 point in to make them bleed, so that we're at a nice even 8. Because you need 2 points to, if I want to get 1 point into blue, I technically need 2 points. If I want 1 point into yellow, I actually need 2 points. So now we're at 8. So we essentially have 4 points to spend. And there's 2 ways to look at it. If you need more morale because you feel like your morale is really low, you're getting one shot in the 3-mans or 6-mans or raids, and you're just not able to survive, put the 4 points into Steeled Resolve. It's an extra 8% morale, which can be really helpful. Once you get the gear and you feel like your morale is in a better place, you could then remove these points and then put them into Skilled Hands, which is where we had the points originally in Moria. We had a couple points here, and this just gives you some extra damage. Next level cap at 75, we'll finish putting them into the bleeds. Right? Well, we've got the bleed damage, we've got Grave Wound, and Grave Wound over time crit magnitude. So that's where the points will go eventually, once we hit 75. But yeah, so you can keep them in the morale and have the morale. If you want to move them over, you can put them into here, because of course, basically the difference is you spend your 8 points and you get 2% more damage, or you spend the 8 points and you get 8% more morale. So it's essentially 1% morale per point. So there's a lot more value, especially with how difficult all of the 3-mans and 6-mans are. There is a lot of value here. But once you have the morale, there's no reason you can't just move the points over for more damage, because it's just free damage. It's just this trait itself doesn't gain its value really until you get the 6 points in it, which is the full flat 10 or 5% damage, which that's really good. But you need 12 points for that, so that's kind of like a long-term thing. So that's why I kind of recommend just putting them into yellow, get the maximum morale, and call it there. Legendary items for red. So what you'll want is 2 Heraldry of the Oxes. If you really want the crit, you can do Heraldry of the Sparrow. It gives you agility over might, which just means that your crit will be higher over your flat damage. Basically, agility gives you, every 1 point of agility gives you 2 points of crit, where every 1 point of might gives you 1 point of agility. So, or 1 point of crit. So it's 1-to-1 with might, but it's actually 2-to-1, or 1-to-2 rather, with agility. So if you want more crit in red line, then agility is what you'll want. So then Sparrow is slightly better. You'll want single target attack crits, and then single target attack damage for your 4 class traceries: battle ready damage buff, Shadow's Lament damage, Blade of Elendil damage, and devastating blow and pressing attack damage. And then finish it off with 2 heroic precisions for that extra 3% crit chance. What's important to note about this heroic precision is that the 3% crit chance goes over the actual crit cap. So the crit cap, the rating itself is 3,000, so it's 3,000 rating, and I think that adds up to, I think that's 25% crit. But with the heroic precision, the 3%, it will take that 25% and go to 28%. So that's why that has some value there. I'll talk about gear later. Now we're just going to go into yellow line. So for yellow line, this is our trait setup from Moria. And this is where we kind of have some freedom to... So we have 5 more points to spend, and it's kind of dependent on what you're looking for. Do you want more damage? Right, so you can just get an extra 6% melee damage from crits. Or when you crit, you can increase your healing magnitude, which is nice to have. You can help your healing and your damage. You can just do damage and attack duration. You can finish off things in yellow, right? Maybe you want more bleed damage, and then you can just boom, done, finish that off. You can get crit defense if that really matters to you, you can finish off the banner, and that allows you to move the banner. You can do, if you're struggling with threat, you can basically the damage that your allies do, 50% of the threat they gained is just transferred to you. So if you struggle with threat, which sometimes Captain can struggle with, this is helpful. Other things to note is Terrifying Blow, which is the whenever you use Routing Cry, it stuns. You don't necessarily need that in like a single target boss fight, right? So, like any boss in the Mirkwood raid, the BG raid, you don't really need the stun duration in the middle of the fight. So you could move those 3 points and put them somewhere else, and then you have these, and then of course you have these 5 points to mess around with. So it's totally just preference. Maybe you want a little bit of bleed and a little bit of crit defense, just so you feel safe. Maybe you want to move your banner around now so it doesn't just land on you. There's things to play with. These 5 points here are truly just personal preference. And then as we get more points, basically now we can start just kind of getting everything. And then the choices don't really matter because we just have access to everything that would be useful anyways. So that's the yellow line. And of course, we already talked about virtues. Virtues are the same. Now let's look at the legendary stuff for yellow line. So we want the Noble Mark debuff and potency, in harm's way damage reduction, and then we also want the battle hardened outgoing healing and battle hardened incoming damage to reduce the or it increases the target's target's incoming damage, which is really good. And then still do Heraldry of the Ox, because it just gives you more vitality over might. If you really want, some people say, I think, is it owl or bear? It's bear. It's a little bit less vitality, but it helps your outgoing healing. Outgoing healing there is some uses for it in yellow line. However, because it's technically less vitality, that's why I recommend the Ox instead. Just because the healing is a little bit more, or the extra morale is a little bit more important, in my opinion. And then you will want the base morale multiplier, and then incoming damage reduction tactical. Tactical is, there's so much tactical damage at this level cap and future level caps that just reducing the incoming tactical damage is really useful, and it's kind of just a must-have to get. And then on that note, because there's so much tactical damage sources in dungeons and raids, the two words of craft we want is the Grand Willpower, which gives us a 1.5% tactical mitigation buff, which of course stacks on goes over the cap. So I believe the cap is like I think it's around like 60% when in a tier 2 raid. So it caps at 60%, but with the Grand Willpower, where is it again? There it is. This will go up to 61.5%. So again, just helps take less tactical damage. All right, and that concludes the legendary weapon setup. Let's talk about gear here quickly. So I've split this into 2 pages. So the first page is the DPS or offensive focused stuff. Some of it can still be good for yellow line and blue line if you wish. Not personally, I don't find blue line is really good at this level cap, especially with how overtuned the all of the dungeons are. But if blue line's your thing, there is still some gear here. But it's why I haven't talked about it. It's just because blue line is not really good right now. And then the second page is more defensive focused, more of the tank stuff that is still good for red and blue line if you so choose, or if you need it. So here we go. So for stone, actually here we'll start with Mirkwood stuff. So sword halls, there's a couple of cloaks that you can work with. One gives you a little bit more crit, one is more just damage focused, and it has some tactical mitigation, which is just really good to get. There's a good neck that is heavy on might, but also gives you some tactical mitigation, so it's really good to get, especially heading into tier 2 content. Doing sword halls will be really, really good. If you need more crit and you're good on everything else, there is this wrist or bracelet that comes from Borg pins. It's just really heavy on the crit because it's agility and not might based. Then from the Mirkwood raid itself, there is this bracelet that's really good, and it's just a nice coverage for everything: might, vitality, and a little bit of crit rating. There's another crit heavy wrist if you really want it in red, and then a good kind of secondary neck. So right, in comparison to sword halls, you lose out on some might, but you gain a lot more vitality, and you gain some you still keep the same tactical mitigation. So you're lowering your damage and then technically your crit a little bit, but you gain a lot more morale. So it some would call it a side grade, but I would call this more of an upgrade because morale is just so valuable right now. So if you are able to get this from the Mirkwood raid, it's a good replacement for a crafted neck or the sword halls neck. And actually, speaking of crafted stuff, crafted gear is the best gear you can technically get in terms of stats, right? It's going to give you the morale that you need for the most part. It's going to give you the mitigations that you need so that you can actually go out and acquire this gear. There isn't really anything better than crafted gear stat-wise, except for all of these rare drops. Aside from, of course, like there's the Mirkwood raid armor and then the OD raid armor, the teal set. That, of course, will be the best armor you can get. But in terms of jewelry or before that, before you can get the raid armor, it is all just crafted stuff. So once you get the crafted stuff, then you can start looking at getting these pieces. So then continuing on to in their absence cluster, stone height gives you a nice ring that has a lot of vitality, but still has some damage attributes to it with the physical mastery and crit rating, and then a decent cloak that is essentially it's an upgrade, or it's a slight upgrade from the sword halls one, right? So it basically shares the same stats with the agility one, but now it's might focused, and so you're gaining more vitality from it. You're just losing it on essentially the tactical mitigation. So it's kind of a, do you need the tactical mitigation? Keep it the sword halls one. If you don't need the tactical mitigation, then you can do either the agility cloak for more crit, or if you want slightly more morale, then you can do the stone height one. North Cotton Farms also has a cloak that gives you the crit rating, which is still nice, but it gives you more vitality than any other cloak. So again, it's kind of like a side grade or an upgrade in terms of morale. Then SS, or sorry, Surma. This is where we get our damage necklace, right? So in Moria, there was the Halls of Crafting neck that gave us the melee damage. This is where the same kind of neck drops, so that's really good. It drops an insanely good wrist, right? 54 might is great. That is a lot of damage, a lot of mastery, and it still has a decent amount of vitality. So I would say this is probably your best wrist for redline, just across the board. And then if you're looking for more crit, there is a crit heavy pocket item that also comes from the same dungeon. Now moving on to more defensive stuff and a little bit more tank focused, but this is still stuff that you should use in red to help you get more morale. You have the ring that comes from Summoth Ghoul. You have the earring that comes from dungeons. There's another bracelet that comes from Lost Temple. It is a little bit more agility focused, but because it still has a decent amount of vitality and tactical mitigation and morale, it's still good to have. It's not the best option, but if you get it, it's something that you can use to help you get other gear in the future. Then you have a heavy vitality pocket item with a bunch of block, parry, evade rating, and some physical mitigation. It's not the best option out there. I would say that the Enedwaith reputation pocket item might be slightly better, as you can get some other options that have like finesse or resist rating. Basically, the difference is that this pocket item will give you a little bit more vitality than the Enedwaith pocket item. And then kind of the same thing with this bracelet is it's giving you a lot of vitality, but it's only giving you block, parry, evade. So you don't really need much as a yellow captain. Really, just having the vitality is fine. It's just this is just another option for you to keep in mind, right? I would argue that this wrist is kind of better than the North Cotton Farm one, just because it's giving you morale and tactical mitigation. But if you're at the tactical mitigation cap, or you're not worried about morale, then you could have this one. Again, it's just options. Stoneheight, this is probably the best shield that you can get for Yellow Line Captain. There's the crafted ones that you can do. There's still the Enedwaith reputation shield that you could do, but this is probably the best drop that you can get. Is this shield, and then from the OD raid, the final items that you're probably working towards. There's this ring here, just great stats all around. A pocket item that's really good for tanking, as it helps your incoming healing, and still gives you an insane amount of morale. So that's probably your best neck for tanking. There's another cloak option that is just really heavy on might and still gives you some vitality. You have basically a morale heavy ring with a little bit of crit on it, so it's not too bad. And just another one that has a lot of crit rating with some vitality. It has tactical mastery on it, so tactical classes will want it, but I mean, if you're looking for just pure crit, this is an option. And then a final neck, if you're not able to get this yellow or gold one, there is one that just is good for tanking with a bunch of vitality in comparison to other necks, and some tactical mitigation with incoming healing. So between these two pages here, this will probably be the best gear that you can get. If you're yellow line, you want the Mirkwood armor raid set for armor. If you're red line or blue line, you will want the Dunoth teal armor set, as those are the armor sets that are best for those, or are made for those specs. But aside from filling out the rest of your slots, it's really just crafted gear and Enedwaith reputation, right? There's a neck, there's shield, there's a cloak, there's pocket items. So those will be your best sources of gear. And I believe that will conclude the video. Still working on Bear. Up next, hoping to do either Hunter, Runekeeper, or I am working on a Warden, but what I might end up doing is just doing a guide on my max level Warden on the main or live servers, and just do a guide that way. So those were probably up next at some point. I wanted to do some dungeon guides for you guys, and I think I'll probably do one for at least North Cotton Farms. It's just the nerfs to the dungeons that they did recently still aren't quite enough. There's still a couple of issues. I mean, even North Cotton Farms, if you don't have the super specific perfect group makeup, you're gonna struggle, and that's just not fun. And especially when it's just a 3-man, like a 3-man should not have a super specific group makeup. The 6-mans can still be a struggle, and stone height is still, I argue, is impossible to do right now, even with these nerfs. So we'll have to see. Hopefully they change them again soon. But if you guys really want a dungeon guide, I'll see what I can put together. It's just they're not made to be done by everybody, and that's kind of annoying and it's frustrating. I know it's frustrating for you guys, and it's I don't like, I've done them, but they're not reasonable. It's not a reasonable amount of effort for the rewards that you're trying to get. So I don't know. Anyways, we will conclude the video there, but I hope you found this guide helpful and look forward to future guides on different classes. Thank you for watching. If you did find this helpful, please leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe. The support has been awesome, and I do really appreciate it. So, see you in the next video. Bye-bye.